Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Doing well, doing well.
Yeah, it's been an interesting couple weeks. I think since our last episode, I think you and I both were saying like, we covered the dating part for men and dating, but I think we had to do a follow up, man. One where maybe we go a little bit more into detail because this generation, especially, I don't know if you've seen the news and all that, but this generation is the least laid generation that's ever existed, man. And we'll take a deep dive into some of the problems and why that's the case. Man, they're in trouble, Herman. They need our help, man. Men out there, I think they need our help. And so I know we and I both got thoughts on this, but man, what do you think about that, man? What do you think about like this generation? And do you think it's a lack of interest or a lack of ability to get women? What do you think, man?
I think it's a combination. It's very uh, the expectations. I think it's what maybe it's hard for some of the young men to see, to balance, to understand know what women wants. Because in the past it was simpler. It was like, let's go to a movie, dinner, and that was it. Now the expectations is like maybe classy restaurant, this that. Uh, it's just because of the social media world. Everyone's trying to outdo one another, and I think that that plays a big impact on the dating game now.
Yeah, yeah, and I think in countries, I think where there's a big wealth disparity. I think it's a big issue. I mean, like, man, I thought it was tough for young men here. Man, you go to Dubai, holy crap, dude! It is. If you're just an average dude, damn man, you just don't have a chance out there with that wealth disparity with millionaires, billionaires, and the women there. No, they play the game, and so it's tough, man. And here, I mean, yeah, you're right, man. Social media, you can't hide. You can't hide forever. So everyone's gonna end up on social media at some point, and then you're gonna start comparing yourself to others, even though like I think you and I joked about this before. Like nobody, when they post like vacation photos and videos, dude, nobody really posts pictures of like a bad time, right? Like when they lose your luggage, when you get there and it's raining. No, everything's perfect, man. Everything's absolutely perfect, and that's the image you want to give off. But then it's also the image that everyone thinks is real. And I think young men, I'm not saying young women don't suffer from this. They do in different ways. That's why we talked about women who use filters and all that. But guys, I think they suffer from inadequacy, man, because in the past, it used to be that, like you said, it was a little bit easier. Women expected a little bit less, and men, I guess it could be said they gave less, but then, if you, if you met the expectations, what more do you want?
Yeah, like I said, 30 years ago it was simpler times. I think the expectations were not extreme. Things were doable. Think about it. You and I were about the same age 20, 30 years ago. If you had just a regular job, well, in and out was a thing to do. Um, it was budget friendly, but now I don't think if you went with that mindset or tried that, I don't know if that worked. If you think, hey, let's go watch a movie, then we'll get some in and out after, and then see where that leads us to.
Yeah, it's true. And another topic you and I were talking about offline is cars, for example, man. Like, it's rough because I remember a time when if you had a car, that was enough. You could pull up in
Mhm.
an 87 Tercel, man, and that was fine. You don't need power door locks. You don't need power windows. You had a car. It was better than the bus, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's a wee bit different. Women, I think, especially women who are used to the nicer things. Let's say, I mean, you roll up on a Hyundai, it's not going to carry the same cachet as a Benz or a Beamer. That's just how it is. I mean, if we're up on a Mustang, that's going to look a hell of a lot cooler than a guy in like a Kia. I mean, it's just not to bag on Kias, man. I mean, some of them are pretty nice. It's just that a lot of women they go by branding. Again, it's what you see on social media, and I don't want to say it's their fault entirely or anything like that, but that's just the nature of this episode is we want to go into detail about things that we can suggest for young and older men out there and what they can do. And so, one thing I just want to, if I could just start off by saying, and just as a concession to men out there who are suffering, they can't get women on the sexual marketplace, I just want to acknowledge that the odds are against you. Okay. I want to acknowledge the odds are against you. You go on a dating apps, way more dudes than women. And so women can be a little more selective. So if a woman's like a five, I mean, objectively speaking, a five, and a guy is like a seven, she's probably going to get the eights or the nines if we're being perfectly honest. I'm not saying they'll stay with her, but she won't really consider the seven. So I have to say that.
Yeah, but they also have options now. I think where they're people they can expand their horizon areas. Kind of as before. I believe there was a study. I mean, this was 20 years ago or more, where you found your significant other within a 10-mile radius. And I wonder if that's still the case or not, since people are more connected all over the city, the state, the world.
No, no, it's definitely not. In fact, I think I know the study you're talking about because they did. It's like a longitudinal study, and they see now the rise of online dating is going up, and that includes just even apps where maybe it's not meant for dating, but it's connecting you, like Instagram, social media. Where I know like Facebook has a dating component, but people just meet through groups or whatever. So more people are meeting through there than before, and so that's just the new normal. You know what I mean? I mean, hell, we know people who they'll meet online, but the women aren't even from the states. Never mind the same country; they're like from a whole different continent. That opens up a whole new can of worms. But it's the new normal, like I said.
Right. So, what kind of we discussed the standards, right? What are the dating standards now? What is expected from a young man to, a date? Because, and I'm basing this off questions I hear, a lot of media, social media posts where, you can't find a good man, or you hear women complaining about a bad date because, like I said, they went to Burger King, their expectations were this, they picked them up in a car that wasn't up to their expectation, and then opened the door. I mean, I see a lot of these posts out there where it seems very difficult for young men.
It is, and I'm glad you gave that example because, like, if you're a young dude, especially late teens, early 20s, and whether you're still in college or maybe you just got out of college, right? And let's say that's all you can afford. And hell, let's say you're using the app or using coupons, right? Look, man, first of all, I think women who have that skill of vetting a man, they should look at those as problem solving skills, first of all, because when you're a teen, when you're in the early 20s, come on, man, you're not going to be raking in the money just yet, especially in this economy. Let's just be serious. A woman should be gauging your potential, your potential earning power, let's just say. And if a guy is just broke now, but he's just taking you to Burger King, taking you to get like, because like, you've seen that list of women. They did that whole thing about women survey, like places they refuse to go to on a first date, and some of them aren't that bad, right? It's just that some of these women have these harsh standards, and it makes these guys feel like shit. But that being said, I mean, if you're the one of those women and like you gauge this guy, you're like, oh well, he's only taking me here. Well, yes, right now. I mean, it's like you got to gauge his metric for success, but also, especially if you're like a woman who's more traditional. I think, like in some parts of some neighborhoods, I think Latina culture, they sometimes get married early. But if they can find that guy that has that potential, but she's like his one and only, dude, that could be really great. He starts at the bottom, he makes it to the top, but
Yeah.
then if she's part of that, he's going to remember that.
Right. So, it, it's difficult, like you mentioned. Doable, definitely doable if there's conversations and you from the get go. You meet. You're both. Let's say you're both working at Costco, young out of high school. And you guys meet. Pretty decent pay. Like, would a young lady have an expectation of a rooftop restaurant, and then going somewhere else, maybe nice after. I don't know. Like, is that an expectation, or would they be cool with, hey, let's go grab something at Chili's, and then we see how the night goes? What would that be like now for let's say two 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Like I think we have an expectation in our minds of what it should be, but I think part of that's because we're from a different generation, and I'm not saying there aren't women out there that don't exist like this, where they have this really good ability to gauge who you are, and they're not really drawn in by, what you get them and where you wine and dine them and all that. Let's just call them what they are. Nowadays, they're unicorns. Okay. That's like, you want to find one of them. If you find even one of those types of women in your whole lifetime, man, that's still pretty good. I mean, some people out there still looking for Sasquatch, man. They're looking for the Loch Ness monster, ain't ever gonna find it. So if you
Yeah,
can find one
Bigfoot.
unicorn, yeah, you can find one unicorn in your life. That's amazing. I mean, I know they're out there. Um, I myself have never dated one, but I know they're out there though. But
Yeah,
most
they are.
most women now, they go with the flow, and men have to keep up because they have a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah. So some dating tips for young men, right? Like, you know, if you start in the friend zone, is there a way out? If you want to start dating someone, because sometimes there is those. If you still meet people the old-fashioned way, right? It's at work, it's at somewhere at the store. I don't know, somewhere, or you go to a party that and someone that knows someone and they know someone, and they hook you up. There's a connection. You know what? Where to go for these young men? How do they match? How do they know? All right, let me try this. Or do they start out friends? And because that I see that more and more. I'll give you an example. My son just went to his high school prom, and they went in a bunch of group. It was a group thing. It wasn't like that many dates, or you know where people were going with another. It was like mostly large groups where there were not expectations. So even at that level, at high school level, it's a big change, because before it was like all this pressure that you had to have a date for prom, or So things have been changing at all levels.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like, because he said he went. It was just a group of people. It wasn't like necessarily
Yeah, it was
couples.
like group female, male. There was like 20 of them. There were like 10 and 10, but no one was going with someone in particular. They were all together. Like it was a collective experience, let's say.
Well, it's cheaper per person if you go as a couple than if you buy individual
Yeah,
tickets. Yeah, yeah, and I think right now, because of COVID, because of the rise of just online interactions, I think young men are finding it harder and harder to just talk with women, and I think in the past the excuse was just, oh, I'm an introvert. Okay, I mean, shit, I'm an introvert, but by comparison to this generation, like, I mean, I'm like, I might as well be the most charismatic guy in the world. But the thing is, it's not a matter of being introvert, extrovert. You still got to know how to talk. You got to know how to speak, how not to look like an ass, unless that's your intention. And that's where people are struggling right now. I think they can't read cues. Like, like in the past, you could kind of tell when a woman's not feeling your vibe, right? Like she just turns away a lot. I don't know if this generation can read it.
yeah, exactly. I think you make a good point, and that's what I was talking about. I mentioned the friend zone. If you've been stuck there for a while, I think you're
Let's
not gonna get out.
let's talk about
You
it.
know, yeah, I think once you get stuck in that place, you're never getting out. And my tips for young men is like, real life is not like the movies. The underdog story where this guy has no shot, ends up dating the prom queen. And that's not reality, guys. Let's not get stuck there. If you get stuck in a friend zone, it's a place where women want to have that space where maybe their boyfriend breaks up with them, or they have a hard day. They call their friend, they unload, and then they go off. So, because women need that emotional connection, this is great for women. But if young men have different expectations, I think it's important for someone like you and I are pointed out, hey, you need to change your strategy, because you're going to be in a situation where you can't win, or you're most likely not going to get that girl like in the movies.
I know in our last episode, I think I used the analogy of a mechanic, where if you're the friend, you're like, you're the mechanic that fixes the Ferrari, but the boyfriend is the one that drives it. I'll use another analogy, and you know what? Because hard times, man, I have to be brutally honest. If you're the guy friend and all you do is listen and kind of give that emotional support, man, honestly, you're more like the fluffer in a porn film at that point. You warm them up, and then the male star gets to finish the job. So you don't actually get to do any of the dirty. If
Right,
you're
right,
okay
right,
with that, if you're all right with that, go by all means, go be the friend. Be the friend zone guy, but you cannot be bitter about it then because you know you were warned, and I think sometimes maybe men what do you think? They're reluctant to pull the trigger. That's why they end up in the friend zone. Well, let me become friends with her first and all that, which is misleading if we're being honest. Because now she thinks that she has a friend, not a boyfriend.
right, right. So so you made a good point. Like young men, be straight up. Like if you have feelings or you're looking at a woman, a girl in a romantic way, be honest about it. I mean, if she says no, you know right from the get go that's not doable, and you need to move on. If you want to keep her as a friend, fine, that's perfect. But it can't. At least you know from the get go, and you don't spend the next 3 5 years thinking of what if or waiting one of these days. She's gonna have a breakup, and I'm gonna be there for her. So I think it's important. Don't Young men, don't waste your time there. If you really have feelings or you feel a connection, be honest and say, "Hey, I really feel this way. What do you think?" And if they get told immediately that's not going to happen, then you know from the get go. But you're not there for a long time. You know,
Just
just wait.
yes, I agree. The example you gave, the beauty of it is, let's say you do exactly what you said, and she's just like, no, I don't think you that way, blah blah blah. It only hurts one time. If you keep it going and then every day you're like, I think this is the day, but it never
Hmm.
happens because you get the
Right.
whole, like she tells you, and we could throw a million of these in there. You get you're such a good friend, or the undercover one they always give you, and it hurts even more in like when they text it to you when you do something nice and they put, oh, thanks, like that. You don't you don't "Aw, thanks" your boyfriend. You "Aw, thanks" a guy that's your friend, you know? If it's your boyfriend, a guy you like, you're a little more passionate about it. You're like, "Oh my god, that's so awesome." So men, I know women have pushed back on this when I've said it, but it's like you see the all thanks, like AWWW thanks. Time to pack it up. Move to a different zip code, man. Find another woman. It ain't gonna work. That's one of those little passive things. It's just a free tip. I just gotta throw that out there because it happens. And then, or sometimes the men read body language horribly wrong, right? And then they fail again and they get all bitter. And it's just, I mean, I've counseled men on that, on proper ways to read body language, but some people they get it all wrong, man.
Right. Being a gentleman is always going to be helpful no matter what society you live in for the most part. Being a gentleman, but direct, being honest from the get go. If not, it's gonna be torture for you for a while if you have these feelings for someone or you think there's a chance. Kind of in like Jim Carrey's movie, One in a Million, right? Like in Dumb
So
and
you're
Dumber,
saying there's a chance.
chance, right? So, uh, don't get stuck there because you might, be waiting for a long time. Now, one of the things I would like to point out is, obviously we're giving tips for men. Hey, be honest, be able to invite her to where you can afford to. Don't go, into debt with the female that you don't know. You're gonna go use your credit card. You're gonna spend 200 a night, in your date, and you only make $60 a day. That's not gonna add up because the next Friday she's gonna be waiting for the same thing. Before you know it, man, you're gonna be in some debt. So I think it's important to not try. There is a there is a way to impress women, but I wouldn't say you have to be outdoing yourself each time because you're gonna be in some really heavy debt if there's expectations every weekend. And I'm talking about just dating, starting to know someone. So it's important for men to also think about their budget when they're dating.
You know, I think another thing. I'm going to combine a couple of points here. One is something you said about confidence. Last episode about just having confidence in yourself. And I think that's something that a lot of guys struggle with. But I want to combine that with something that my former co host on LA Sessions used to say about her advice for guys. It's like, you take someone on a date somewhere, right? But let's say you're using the example you gave, like you don't make a lot of money, right? It's like maybe you're taking her to like your favorite pupusa spot, right? But it's just like a mom and pop stop. And it's like, both of you can eat for under 20 bucks. Okay. But let's say that's your favorite spot. Her advice is just go in there, own it. Be like, man, this place awesome. I love it. I always come here. This is like my favorite spot versus like, I wish I could take you somewhere better. Then your confidence gets derailed. But as long as you're just treating it like, man, I love this place, right? And I would say apply that to things you're interested in, right? Don't be like, oh, I read comic books, or I play video games too, but you're embarrassed about it. Just own it. I mean, just at least then it shows you have character and you're interesting.
And that you have hobbies and that you're
Yeah,
not just at just work. Like, playing video games is not a terrible thing unless you never take a break, but
right.
your hobby, right? You play
Yeah.
basketball. Some guys play soccer on the weekend. I mean, there's different things, hiking, walking, exercising are hobbies now, right? Which are important to have. But it's you have to put who you are, because one another tip I gotta give young men is, if you're always available for someone and they're not available for you, red flag. Red flag, my friend. Be careful with that. That's a tip I gotta give you young men, is that, if they're texting you whenever they need something and you're like hitting back half a second after that text comes in, and then when you text them, it's not the same. Be cautious. Be cautious if you're in that process of dating. I mean, once you're in a relationship, it's different, right? And that's a different conversation. But we're talking about starting off courting women. How are you gonna do it? What's still acceptable now? Like, you know, do young men still walk up to women and be like, "Hey, how's it going? Hey, my name is so and so," or is it just texting, Instagram, Facebook, all that? Because it's different. From my understanding, I think from research, it shows that people will most likely text or send something via the web that they wouldn't say in person. So I don't know if that gives young men more confidence to kind of take an extra leap via social media than in person.
I think so. I think so because it's so much easier to walk something back over texting and all that versus when you're there in public and right and you just want to like, oh my god, this is so embarrassing. I wish I could just, like disappear. Well, online you can lie, say, oh my, I lost my connection, whatever, right? But just going back to what you're talking about, like just just communication and things like that. I mean, people have to improve their social circle too. And that might mean having people in your social circle that are women. Once upon a time, if you had an older sister, they could kind of tell you certain things. And actually, having an older sister, cousin, whatever, at least can be honest because going back to the example you said about if you're too available, listen, man, we joked about this. In sports, the best ability is availability. In dating, it's like you would think, but don't try to apply logic to dating because I sometimes I have to tell some of my male clients some really really hard truths, and one of those is if they ask, like, man, like every time she messages me on the dating apps, I always reply, but when I reach out to her, I've noticed like it takes her a couple days, and in fact, sometimes it's like a specific day is when she's always talking to me, but other days I can't reach her, but I know she reads my stuff and all this on a balance of probabilities. It's probably because she's dating other men. I'm not saying she's exclusive to other men.
Right, right.
I think women will play the odds, and like I'm not saying guys don't, but that's just the world we live in now. If you meet a girl on a dating app, and let's say you took her out, and let's say you took her somewhere nice, and you hit it off, you might think, oh my god, I can't wait for the second date, and she might say the same. The reality is, you might be her favorite out of the three guys she's going out with that week, right? That's well, first of all, that's three free dinners that she's getting. Let's not overlook that. But it doesn't make her bad. I just want to emphasize that to any women that are listening. It just makes her like everyone else. That's all. So the days of like, if you're a guy who's just no, I'm just gonna like see one girl at a time and all this,
You know,
it's not going to. It's not. You're not going to be happy. You know.
so here's the thing, and I know we both won't be able to answer this question, but I'm sure you have a similar experience. Like, I have clients who date women who have children, which is nothing wrong with that. I think the expectation shifts. When women have children, I think they're more willing to take a chance on a guy, um, than before. And some of the young men that I've worked with is they kind of don't understand why women with children are more attracted to him than he is of them. So it's a very complicated thing. And my question would be in the future would be like, do women's expectations change for dating once they have kids and it doesn't work out with their children's father? You know,
Yeah, that is a great question, and maybe we can get some single moms on. I don't know, but like I'll say, I find that my experiences and the experiences of my own clients have been all across the board, man. Like I find that women, like because like the stats are because on any given day, the divorce rate in this country is hovering between like 50 to 57%, right, on the high. But when you look at like second marriages, I think that statistic goes closer to like 60 something percent, which means divorcees are more willing to get divorced because they've done it once already. They've done it once already. So it's not that hard. It's not their first rodeo.
she's are willing to get remarried.
Yeah, so we have definitely. I could speak to that, but I'm not going to get into that. But like, yes, and sometimes it does become easier, like, and the guy might feel more disposable. Guy number two or husband number two will feel more disposable than husband number one, because she's used to it now. She's a seasoned pro, this isn't her first Wimbledon. So,
Hmm.
and so guys, especially young men, who are going to get into that, where they're going to be like, you know what? Because there are advantages of dating single moms in the sense that they're mature. At least you would hope, and they're not about like the bullshit no more most of the time. They're not about like this courting phase. They want to move fast, I've noticed. But then the guy's got to be okay with that.
Yeah, because you're no longer just dating one person. Because once they have kids and you go into this relationship, then you have to, eventually create a relationship with the children, or if there's one or multiple. So it's a different ball game for young men. So because it's just different, where you're no longer just the availability is not gonna be there, as with a woman who doesn't have kids. I mean, I've seen a lot of posts where things go wrong when they go out because, sometimes the woman's ordering to go for her children at home and the guy's not ready for that and it starts bad from the get-go. So, but like I said, those are clips that we sometimes see. I'm sure there's more story. There's a backstory to it, but I think there's a mutual understanding that when you ask someone out to eat, it's just two of you. And my expectation to pay would be for two people, right?
Yeah.
What you're gonna order, what I'm gonna order, and then we're gonna call it a day.
Yeah, I think I know the examples you're talking about, and I think those are like those viral videos that are meant to be very sensational. And I don't want men to believe that all single moms are like that. I mean, that those are like very sensational cases and all that. But it is different. It is different. Just like I want to. I know we've been giving some tips to younger men. Let me give a little tip to older men out there, because this is a fantasy that older guys always have, and some of us get a chance, a few times in our life to actually experience. Is when you date a girl significantly younger than you, and it sounds awesome, sounds great, and physically, most time, it is great because you're getting them in the prime of their lives and all this stuff, and then you got to talk to them. Now you got to ask yourself, can you relate to them? Can you could you like if you spend the night with them, and yes, if you're spending the night with them, let's just be adults here, it probably means that you did it. Can you actually carry a conversation with them and stay the night, or is it going to be like, okay, I can't relate to anything you're saying. I hate your music. You hate my music. You don't get any of my pop culture references. My jokes are over your head because you're just not smart enough yet, or you haven't even maybe the woman hasn't even been working long enough to recognize how many rungs above the ladder you are than her in the professional marketplace. You know what I'm saying? Are you ready for that? I would challenge men right now. Are you prepared for that? Because it's not as easy as you think. It's just like men who think like, oh, I started dating a girl who loves video games. Be careful what you wish for on that one. Be very careful what you wish for. Your guy friends who like playing video games is one thing, but a girl, just trust me on that one.
Right. I have similar experiences, and one of the things I tell the men is, after the act, after the love making, whatever you want to call it, 15-30 minutes length of time. Right?
Ooh,
Take
Mr. Mr. Romantic over here, huh?
Yeah, let's give 30 minutes, right? Let's give 30 minutes. So what I tell men is once those 30 minutes are done, can you actually hold the conversation? Can you guys actually get along for the other 23 hours and 30 minutes that are left of the day? Because that's just a small period of time. And after, when they're dating, it becomes less frequent. That's just how it is. Research and people will tell you this. That becomes so the important part is not just the physical. Can you actually hold a conversation? Can you guys go to Walmart without arguing? Can you guys go get the car washed? I mean, things like that. Is that something that you can hold the conversation without arguing, without fighting? Because relationships are built on that. It's not just on the sexual aspect. There's tons of more stuff that go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And piggybacking off that, one tip I would have to men, and this is for men who are they're on their purpose. Like maybe they're not like they haven't hit on every goal, but let's say they hit on a lot of them. And let's say they got a good career, steady career, making six figures, drive a pretty nice car, dress well. You know, they're what men would envy. Other men would envy, let's say. Are you a guy that has the ability to cut bait and just say enough is enough? We're through. Are you that guy, or are you going to be the guy that's got that scarcity mindset of like finally made it, but I sacrificed so much in my younger life. I never had like a steady girlfriend, and so I'm dating a girl now, and she's really beautiful. The sex is good, but it's what you talked about. We can't talk. She doesn't encourage me. She's argumentative. She's not agreeable, and she just doesn't do those things. But I mean, 5 out of 10 qualities that I want aren't that bad, right? No. If you're a man on your purpose, you will have choices. Cut bait. Okay, walk away. Because if you're with a woman that, because one of the qualities I say a good woman should have for a man is the ability to encourage him. Because I've known some women who are they have the mentality of, well, I shouldn't have to make my man better. He should already be really, really rich and really, really successful because that's why I love him or whatever. Well, why you become the expendable one there because women's looks will diminish over time. We all know that. And so if you're like on the wrong side of 20 and you're discouraging to your man, and then at some point he realizes I could get a girl on the right side of 20 who is encouraging. Why would he not do that? You know?
Right. Right. At that point, a man has to view his options, and it's like a return on his investment. Unfortunately, that's how it is. Am I going to get a return here? Can this person, if they want a family, is that something that's possible? Is she going to be able to be with me, raise my kids, or do we come a decision maybe we both have to work some way and figure out childcare. But if women are going after a guy who's got the castle built already, he's gonna have a lot of demands. So, but for men that, like you said, it's important. If there's a lot of red flags from the get go, is cut bait immediately. Like if something's not, it's not gonna get better. If that situation, you guys have awkward silences, no one has a topic to talk about, and you guys are just sitting there eating, staring at the food, and there's I think this is the biggest dating mistake is you put your phone in front and it could be the young man or the young woman who are more interested on what's going on their phone than the person who's in front of them. That's a big red flag where you have to be cut bait immediately.
Absolutely. And let me just say this to men out there that are listening who they have a strong sense of compassion. Okay. Because sometimes, like men, we try to rescue women. Sometimes we feel like the world screwed them over, right? And we're in a good place. So it's almost like we have this sort of romantic version of survivor's guilt, and we got to go jump in there and save them. Let me just appeal to men out there. You didn't do this to them. You weren't the dad that ran off on them. You weren't the uncle that hurt her. And those are all awful, awful things. And men need to do better. If you're a dad, you got to be a freaking dad. Okay. That wasn't you. But it's not also on you to bear the brunt of all of that. Okay. Like when she's having flashbacks, when she's getting triggered by you because maybe something you did, something you wore, somehow reminds her of someone who tormented her. It's not your fault. And our very field is made of people that can help people who go through those kind of traumatic events. You're her romantic partner. That's not your fucking job. Okay. And so don't feel like you have to. But I would say that to women, and you and I, we kind of joke about this in our profession, where lots of times certain women in our field, their first love, if you will, tends to be a man that they're trying to repair, and usually, fails spectacularly. Man, it's just, I'm not saying that as a mockery. I mean, I have failed spectacularly, but you got to know when to cut bait, man, and just say, your trauma is your trauma, your baggage is your baggage, and I can't take the responsibility of it. It wasn't me. I tried to help, didn't work.
Right. And like you said, red flag, guys. There's things that happen to all of us, male, female. But if, that trauma is coming in, you don't understand me, you don't know what I've been through, and those are the constant go tos, yeah, you might be in for a long ride. If, from
Yeah,
the get go, in a relationship and there's an argument or this or that, or she's just, I can't do this, I can't do that, or don't talk, or you'll see the triggers, you'll see all the red flags. Please pay attention to those guys, whether you're 20, you're 40, because they only multiply as you get closer to the person. Because then, as you mentioned, it's not their fault, right? It's not their fault. They had nothing to do with the uncle, with the dad, the previous boyfriends, the previous males in their life. But eventually, if you stay there long enough, it will be your fault.
it will be
I
you.
guess.
We joke around, right? Sometimes about women who, even on the first date, they'll tell you about all the losers and all the bums that they've dated, and like they've never dated a winner. Maybe they even got kids. The fathers of their kids aren't even winners, but somehow they're the smart one, and all these guys, the rest of the world, are the crazies. If you're a dude, like, don't be so naive. You know what I mean? Like, know your worth. Like, be protective of your heart, right? One suggestion I have, and it's kind of like on the flip side of what we're talking about, but for men, is no pity party. Okay, you don't throw yourself a pity party. Let's say you ask 10 women out at the bar, the club, the fucking bookstore, and they all say no. No pity party. Okay, don't feel sorry for yourself. It just wasn't your day. You know, look, man, you're not gonna hit a home run every single day. It just works that way. Okay, instead, channel that and ask yourself, you know what? Objectively speaking, why do these women turn me down? And let's say you know that these are like high caliber women, and maybe you're not quite where you want to be yet. Use that as motivation. Never like malice. Never like, I'll show them. No, show yourself. Prove yourself right, not proving them wrong. Go do something. Be interesting. Be the guy that the version of you 10 years down the road is going to be like, I'm glad he learned and he correct course, you know?
Right. And women like to see success. They like to see successful men. They want to see men accomplishing things, right? Like I said, it happens where they'll date guys that are not there, and it's cool. Sometimes you might go through the process together, but they like success. Let's be honest. I can give an example. When we were in high school, I'm sure anyone can relate to this. Girls were always attracted to the guys out of high school because they were driving a car, they had a job, they had, even if it wasn't the greatest job, but they had a job.
or the
So
greatest car, or the greatest
right,
car.
right,
Yeah.
right. But it was either the bus or or someone with the car, right? So from there, I was able to see when I was a young man once upon a time, like man, this is gonna be an uphill battle for me, and so it's important to understand your worth, your value. And another thing, guys, is we're talking a lot about what women want, and it's all cool because they have their expectations, but let's talk about what you want, what your expectation is from the get go. Set that up. Like, what do I want from a young lady? What do I want if we do become involved? If we do start, what's my expectation? Because if we go into this, um, it's all about her and what she wants. That's where we get into trouble, guys. This. It starts there. So also men, put your expectation. It's not just where she wants to go to eat. It's not where she wants to vacation at. It's not just about that. It's about you too. What is it that you want? Because if not, you're gonna have a lifetime of chasing her needs only, and you're gonna be left behind, and you're not gonna be a happy camper.
I think it's really important for men to maintain frame control in the relationships. And what I mean by that is if you start the relationship because she enters your frame because you're the success object, she's the beauty object, but she respects the fact that you're paying for everything. You're leading that charge, if we're being quite honest. I mean, studies have been shown in terms of happiness, the women are most happier, the ones that in terms of gender roles, they're a little more traditional. The ones that are unhappiest, and this should not come as a surprise to people. I hope they're not offended, but the numbers don't lie. This ain't me talking. Is women who are like, F those gender roles. I'm a boss. I'm this. They aren't happy. They aren't happy because they can't find those men that are willing to be subservient. But then, and you brought this up before, they think they want that subservient man, but then they get with them. And at some point, a lot of them are just going to be like, damn, man, can you make a decision?
Right,
What you
right,
said about being a traditional man, it comes into play, right? I mean, sometimes it's like, look, man, when I was a kid, dude, I fucking thought I wanted to be a ninja as my career. Am I a freaking ninja now? I wouldn't want to be one either. And so just because you think you want something really bad, it does not mean it's actually what you actually want. It's like just real quick, going to something you said about like giving women like kind of like what they want, all that. And I've had to counsel men on this. It's like that sometimes your problem is you give women what they want or what you think they want, but you're not giving them what they respect. That's totally different, you know. And I think that's a takeaway guys should have. But like, yeah, I mean, what
Mhm.
do you think?
Man. Yes, I think that's a great point. And you know how this starts, man? Say no. Learn to say no. Learn to say not today. I'm unavailable. I can't because again availability. When every time it's yes, then you become a yes man, and then it's hard to get out of that because then let's say you guys are just dating, you have a family emergency, a party or something, you need to go to that. It's your niece's birthday, whatever, nephew, and you want to be with family, but she wants to go out somewhere. And it's one of those where you still haven't taken her maybe with the family. I mean, you have to learn to have boundaries and say, no, I can't. I'm unavailable, but we can do it later. Because, you know, if you start like shunning your own family and you're like, I'm going to skip this, and then that doesn't work out, man, or if that becomes a thing, she's gonna be used to you breaking your plans for her all the time. It's just gonna be an expectation. So, and I'm not saying I want you guys to be mean to women, but I think understanding, I think for them to hear no from you. Like you said, women respect men who are firm, who are traditional, who still want to have a successful life, have family, but they respect that confidence. And if they can walk all over you, they know you're not the one.
If they can walk all over you, they know that at your job, they're going to walk all over you. How will you become a boss? Right? How are you going to become a boss if you can't even be a leader at home? And like you said, we're not telling dudes be like a-holes and like tyrants. No, for me, I'm just talking about frame control. Remember that she entered your frame because she thinks you're better than all those other guys in her DMs and all that. That should mean something. That should really mean something. And sometimes it's funny. The guys in life sometimes that have the lowest, what's considered sexual marketplace value, SMV, they're the ones that overinflate their worth. But I've noticed with clients I have, look, man, I got some clients, I'm like, some that I've like graduated from therapy and they're like killing it, right? But they always had that potential. They always question themselves. Am I enough? Am I enough? And I'm like, dude, you're in the top 1%. You're enough, right? But they don't believe it. And that's where I want men out there every year evaluate your success and give yourself credit. No, again, no pity party. Give yourself credit, right?
Right, and it's a trial and error. Obviously, we're talking from experience, from clients we work with, our own personal experience. But at the same time, I have a very successful client who he's got options, but he knows it. He's, he's very successful, does well. So he has options, but he once these red flags we're talking about, because he's been there and done that. He's been married 2 times before. So he knows the red flag. So right from the get go, first date, something doesn't work out. All right, goodbye. This is not going to work out. So, but like I said, yes, it's a process. It's a trial and error. Sometimes we tend to jump into things that we're not aware about that we think are going to go this way, but actually end up not how we anticipate. So it's important, men, put some value in your name, put some value in who you are, and also have some expectations. Don't just say yes to everything. Don't just agree, also say, hey, I want to check this out. Even it can come, even choosing a movie. We saw a chick flick last week. Let's go see this one this week. So it's about understanding one another early on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think something I used to say just with couples in general, and this applies when you're dating, but I think it applies even more actually when you're past the dating phase and you're full on exclusive relationship phase, and that is, you and I we talk about fixing people. Like sometimes we feel like our clients want to go fix their significant other, and in reality, it's not so much about fixing. It's almost like they're not perfect because nobody's perfect, and they might have flaws but you're okay with those flaws because it makes them who they are, right? Now, I'm not excusing really bad flaws like abuse, things like that, heavy drug use. That's different.
Right.
I'm talking about little quirks they have, right? You got to ask yourself, do you really want them to get rid of all those things? Because then what does that really make them? It just makes them into like your little puppet in some ways. And so sometimes we got to be okay with those little eccentric behaviors that
Yeah. Yeah. Women want to be feminine. Women want to have that, but also men, you also have to understand that with that, you also have to be masculine in a certain way. It can't be, the easiest way I can put this is women don't want to be dating another woman as far as that, where, um, you know, they're going to have to tell you, hey, stick up for me, or you didn't do, they need that firmness. They need to be able to see that who you are, what you're about. What if they start paying attention to these things early on. Are you that guy that's just going to sit there? Like you said, you are who you are wherever you go. So, like you mentioned, Brian, if you're not that way in your relationship, how are you ever going to be promoted at work? How? Because that's probably the way you are at work too. You just don't chase another step. You're not that person. So work on yourself. Work on yourself. Make Become the best version of yourself you can be, and then women will start coming your way, and you will be surprised of how many women you can attract and the type of women when you work on yourself and you become successful in your own way, and whether it's a job, whether it's a business, but success is very attractive.
yeah, and when it comes to dating and vetting women, because now I want to switch to the men that vet the women's side, given everything you just said about success, chasing this goal to be the best version of yourself, being better than you were yesterday. If you get with a woman who appreciates your success in the sense that it affords her nice things, nice experiences, nice meals, nice clothes, whatever, but she doesn't understand or respect the grind that you had to go through and continue to go through, also time to cut bait. Unless it's one of those friends with benefits things, which what are you really losing or gaining, you know? But if it's someone that's relation material, that's not relation material. Because I'm not saying that women got to get into the kitchen and see how the sausage is made, but they have to have an understanding that what you're doing takes work, it takes innovation. You're right, especially if you're a boss. If you're a boss, you're probably not getting your hands dirty, but your brain is working 24 hours a day, right? That tends to wear you out mentally. So if you have a woman who just doesn't appreciate that, but she's just like, okay, but where are you gonna take me right now, or whatever, but she's not understanding the sacrifice it takes for you to be that high status guy. You can plate her, you can take her on dates, you can do whatever, but I assure you she's not going to be long-term relationship worthy because if she's going to play the game that you're only worth what your wallet dictates you're worth, then why shouldn't you be okay with just what her looks and that physical value brings, right? Because it's one-sided otherwise, and you're looking at each other from one dimension. But the girl who's beautiful but can check off those boxes, can encourage you, understands that. That's you get now. You're getting close to unicorn territory.
Yeah. And young men and men in general take this into consideration. Women are always working on themselves. They're doing their hair, they're doing their nails, they're getting pampered up. They're always working on themselves. So because beauty is important to them. So for you, you need to work on yourself, on your budget, education, on who you are as a person. Bring value to yourself because just going to the barber and getting a haircut for us ain't gonna cut it, guys. There comes more to that for us. Whether it's fair or not, that's just how the world works. But yes, for women, they're always working on themselves in a different way to become attractive, to make sure some guys can take that double look. And like I said, but that's how it is. That's just what the market has, right? So men, work on your confidence, work on your finances, learn to say no, and value yourself.
100% agree with what you just said. And let me just take a moment to salute all those women out there who do all the things you're talking about with, making themselves and maintaining that level of beauty. Because I think lots of women, have given a chance, they'll absolutely tell you what they have to do to maintain that image of being an 8, a 9, or a 10, right? The makeup, because look, man, I know a lot of men kind of mock women who wear excessive makeup and use filters on social media. And I get it, it's funny. But that being said, some women are really good at makeup, and that's a gift. That's a skill. I got to give them that. And a lot of them I've met in real life, to be honest, are really beautiful without it. The makeup accentuates it. But they do other things. They go to the gym. They don't eat like animals, or maybe they just have really, really good metabolism. But either way, their hygiene is great because you think about what we have to do, it's nothing compared to what a lot of ladies have to do. I mean, you've seen those memes where like guys, like we just use shampoo and then somehow our hair looks good, but women have to use all this stuff. I get it. I get it, man. And some women are more genetically gifted than others, but then some guys are more genetically gifted. But I have to give my flowers to those women out there that really take care of themselves. They dress for men because a lot of men dress for women. You have to impress them. So I applaud those women who at least still understand that traditional role where like, hey, I gotta track these dudes. So, that's me giving credit where credit is due. Because it's easy to mock them for wearing too much makeup. But when you get a benefit from them wearing all that makeup and you got that girl by your side and all the other guys are just like, damn, oh, man, that dude, look at that girl that he pulled. Hey, suddenly now you're grateful for all that makeup, all the time in the gym, her not going back for seconds, at the buffet, all that. So kudos to you ladies out there.
Yes, yes. That you made a great point. We're not bashing women. We're not doing any of that. It's just for men to understand. Women also have a lot of work that they do, but that we're here to talk about you guys, not them. But yes, there's that all that work that comes just to stay beautiful and be out there looking very good for you. Um,
Yeah, and look, I think we're beating a dead horse here because every therapist always goes back to communication. Okay, communication is very, very important. Early in dating, middle of dating, And in a marriage, communication never ceases to be important. Okay. And I think it's important that as relationships go on, people are just honest with each other about just expectations is important. And then that way you avoid a lot of these traps. You know what I mean? And like I think single moms, I got to give it up to single moms. They're very very upfront about what they need, and they'll say stuff like, "I'm not always going to be available," or "I need a man that makes more money than me because I'm plus one, plus two, whatever." Right? And so I applaud them for that because you got to imagine they'll say that, but that probably scares away some people, and as well it should, because at least they know that guy's not for them, right?
Mhm.
And I think women that don't have kids, it wouldn't hurt them to have that level of honesty too, as long as
Mhm.
it's grounded in reality. And just like with guys, I'm like, hey, if you're a dude and you know you're doing what you're winning in life, you're relatively young. Let's say you make six figures, and I'm not saying that's a metric of success, but let's say six figures, got a nice car, you got your own place. You generally are happy with who you are, and you feel like you're leveling up. Well, you can be pretty discerning too. You can be picky about who you choose to let enter your world, okay? And don't let anybody tell you no different, okay? But if you're a guy who, just sits at home, grandma's basement eating like hungry man dinners and shit and is in between jobs, but you think you can pull like a Jessica Alba or something like that, you can pick up on Sydney Sweeney. Come on, man, come see one of us because you need help. That delusional thinking is going to cause you to eat a lot of insults from people online, in person. And we don't want that for you, man. We don't want you to get mocked and ridiculed when maybe your sense of self awareness is maybe the problem. Okay. And so a little bit of realism, helps, but communicate things and communicate with yourself. Like let yourself know what your goals are, what you want in your life, so you can be the better version, like you talk about.
Yes, planning for success is important. Planning for who you are, where you want to go, very important. So dictate your own terms, guys. Don't let those be dictated to you from the get go. Dictate your own terms, and then maybe a mutual agreement will come, and then you'll find that person who could be relatable to you, who you could be your person, and then you guys got one another, and the rest will is a process.
Yeah, what do you think? Maybe our next episode we could talk about what you just said, like traits of success, how men can find success, not just about women. I mean, we've devoted 2 episodes now into
Right.
dating for men. Maybe what do you think? Next one we could talk about traits of success, because I think we've mentioned in the past, man, a lot of our clientele tends to be very high achieving men. And certainly that's something that I think most men want to be, right? They want to be high achieving, want high status, but they don't know how to get there. And I think we can help with that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think we could definitely touch up on some of those points and have
Yeah.
the conversation.
Yeah. I think this has been a good episode. And I think if you haven't already seen the first episode, please go back to our last one where we talk about modern dating and check out and check out by the end of today's, if you agree, disagree, post your comments, and I'll just I'll just say one last thing in terms of like if I could leave people with 3 words of advice on how they can level up with women, it's really simple. Buy my book. That'll help you. Available on Amazon. Link in the description below. Check it out. That's my shameless plug for the episode there.
All right.
All
Sounds
right,
great.
man. As always, a pleasure, Herman. So, you guys, thanks for viewing. We'll see you all next time.